read this thing. Barry's resume is so damn long, it would take more than, yeah. Okay. Okay, is that okay? That's better. Yeah, okay. Like I said, if I tried to introduce Barry, his resume is so damn long, it would take up this entire meeting. Anyway, I think most of you know Barry Schiff. He holds multiple aviation speed records, accumulated more than 28,000 hours and 364 different types of airplanes, which is one of the main reasons that Ted Smith chose Barry to compete in the Aerostar race against the Russians' world speed record, unbeatable for over 2 decades. In January of 1975, Barry Schiff and KTLA newsman Hal Fishman, on 2 separate flights, flew a production Aerostar with standard, unmodified 290 horsepower turbocharged Lycomans that broke the Soviets' record for piston-powered land planes. Barry's performance against the Russians' highly modified 1,000 horsepower engine was 305 miles per hour compared to their 292.9 miles per hour. Today, he's here to tell us just how he was able to do that. So it's quite an accomplishment. Barry, you're on.
Hi, I gather you can hear me okay. At least I hope you can. You know, like Henry VIII said to his 5th wife, I won't keep you long. I guess maybe a half an hour is what we're allotted for. First of all, I'd like to make one correction. The Aerostar that we used was not quite standard. We did a couple of things to it. At the factory, they sealed the air boxes, and we were allowed to pull 32 inches of manifold pressure instead of the normal limit of 30 inches of manifold pressure for the Aerostar 601. So that's how we got a little bit more speed out of it. And we had to be a little bit careful, allow the cylinder head temps to get too hot. And they didn't. Those engines ran beautifully for 32 inches without any problem. The way this all began is kind of interesting. I was reading an ad in AOK Bio magazine. I read that once in a while. And the ad said that they're introducing the Aerostar 601. And it said the world's fastest light airplane. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I went to the world records, which are maintained by the, let's see, how do you say this now, the Aéronautique Internationale in Paris. And I looked at the record and I saw, no, that wasn't the fastest airplane. The fastest was this Russian Yak, Yak 11. I'll show you a picture of it here, if I can allow me to do that. Do you see it now? Yes. I hope you can. Can you see it? Yes. Can anybody tell me if you can see it?
Yes, we got it. We see it. We got it.
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyway, this Yak 11 is a Soviet trainer, which has a 1,000 horsepower engine, and it did fly along at 290 miles an hour. And I thought, well, in order to really say that the Aerostar is the world's fastest light airplane, we really have to prove it. And so I called Ted Smith, as you all know, who is the designer of the airplane. And I said, Ted, you know, you've made this claim, this airplane is supposed to be the world's fastest. And I think what we need to do is attempt to set a world speed record and beat the Soviet record. And he was interested in that, and he said, okay, what do you need? And I said, all I need is your airplane. And so they provided us with one. It was a standard airplane with the exception of the fact that we could pull a bit more horsepower. And we flew 2 courses. We flew a 1,000 kilometer closed circuit course, and we also flew a 500-kilometer closed-circuit course. And the average airspeed at 25,000 feet were about 312 miles an hour. But we couldn't use those as the official speed record for the world record attempt because you lose a little speed when you make a turn around the pylon. And like I said, it's a closed circuit course, so we had to fly around the pylon and come back. We lost a little bit of time when we made the turns, and we lost a little bit of time as well because we had a bit of a wind up there at altitude. And as you all know, that when you have any kind of wind at all, it's going to decrease your speed, average speed during a round-robin flight in that wind. But we did average 305 miles an hour, which I thought was pretty good. Here's a picture of the airplane. Show it to you. And I'm not sure who owns it now. It's 90337 was the airplane number, one of the very original 601s. And then we had to have it weighed before the record flight. And this is a photograph of the airplane being weighed. The airplane has to weigh less than 3,000 kilograms, which is 6,614 pounds. It had to weigh less than that to be in the category of a light airplane. If it weighed more than that, it wouldn't qualify. There are obviously bigger, faster airplanes, but not that weigh less than that. Anyway, that's the airplane. And what do we have next here? I want to show you an interesting picture because there's a story behind it. That's a photograph of me on the left, Hal Fishman, who was my buddy. We both flew these record flights. He was in the middle. And Ted Smith is there on the right. Now, do you notice there's a camera hanging down? Ted Smith is holding a camera in his hand. And just before we took off, Ted got in front of the airplane and wanted a picture of Hal and I sitting in the cockpit. And he got out there and started taking pictures. And he noticed that the rudder was cocked off to one side. And being a perfectionist, he asked us to center the rudder so the airplane would look pretty. And I said, Ted, the rudder pedals are centered. They're absolutely neutral. When you look back at the rudder, he said, no, you're not holding the pedals neutral at all because the rudder is off to the right. And we told him, no, we're holding the rudders neutral. Let me come back to where am I supposed to be here? Anyway, Ted came back and he couldn't believe it. He said the rudder pedals can't be neutral and the rudder be deflected. So he stuck his head in the cockpit and he saw, by golly, the pedals were neutral and the rudder was not. And what this indicated to him was that the rudder cables were not connected. They could not have been connected in order for that condition to exist. So Ted Smith took off his jacket, borrowed some tools from somebody, got in the back of the airplane into the tail cone, and reconnected a rudder that had never been connected at the factory. So we had been flying this airplane during our test flights from the factory to San we had the airplane for 4 or 5 days and never knew that the rudder was not connected. We never had a rudder on the airplane, which on the one hand shows you what a great airplane Aerostar is. You don't need to use any rudder. But thankfully, we didn't have an engine failure because had we had one, we would have been in a bit of trouble. So Ted did connect the rudder, and then when we moved the pedals, obviously the rudder moved. So that was kind of an interesting side story that not many people know about, but you do now. Anyway, when we came back from the flight, the observer from the National Aeronautical Association, who did all of the timing and record keeping for the flight, he had sat in the back of the airplane during our flights, calculated that we had flown 305 miles an hour, and did indeed beat the record held by the Soviet Union for a number of years. And it always feels good to break a world record, but it felt particularly good back in those days to break a record held by the Soviet Union and bring it back to the United States. During the flight, we carried what are called first day covers. Let me show you where that is. I'm not really good at this stuff. This is a photograph of official U.S. mail that was carried on board the record flight. These envelopes were obviously printed before the flights. We took them to the post office. They stamped and canceled it, and then we were allowed to carry these as official U.S. mail aboard the record-setting flight. And my understanding is that Roger and Lori Parker have one, and I gave them one, and they're going to make it available to somebody who might want it. And I think you're going to auction it or raffle it or do something with it. In any event, I hope you enjoy having it. We certainly enjoyed making them available after the flight. Also, as a result of bringing the airplane back to the United States, the senator from California, Alan Cranston, arranged to give Hal and I a congressional commendation for having returned a prestigious world record back to the United States. And that was kind of fun. We got to go to Washington to receive the commendation. And then I got a letter from the Soviet Union, from the official Aero Club of the Soviet Union, congratulating us on taking back the record that they had held for so long. I don't know that you can see it very well, but it's written in, let's see here. It's written in Russian. And I think it means congratulations. Maybe someone can read that. I have no idea what it means. But it has something to do with the world record. Someone told me it's a congratulatory note. So that was kind of fun to receive that. Let me get back to, there we go. There might be a few questions that some of you want to ask. I'd be delighted to attempt to answer them if you have any questions. Okay.
Can you hear me, Barry?
I certainly can, Roger.
Well, listen, I'm gonna walk around. Anybody got questions? I'll walk around and hand a mic. Oh, we got a bunch. We got questions coming. Hang on, I'll be back there. Should have brought my skateboard.
How do you conduct the most efficient turn at the turn point?
Steeply. Actually, that's a really good question. We computed that a 45-degree bend turn would be the best. And you might say, well, why not make it a little steeper than that? Because making it steeper reduces the turn radius and therefore the distance. The problem is at 25,000 feet, if you make the turn too steep, you're going to start to lose airspeed. And we already did actually lose a little bit. But if you lose too much airspeed, you'll have a hell of a time regaining it on the other side of the turn. 65 degrees would be the best compromise, and that's what we used.
Got one more right here.
fun story. But I want to add something. I was in Southern California with the Aerostar program, and Hal Fishman was the announcer on TV, and not TV then, just radio. Oh, TV.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I was in Southern California during the Aerostar program. Was the newscaster, and I remember he talking about learning to fly back then. And every newscast, he'd talk about his experience of learning to fly. So, my God, look where he has gone from a fledgling to setting a world record. I thought that's unbelievable.
Yeah, Hal was a dedicated enthusiast when it came to flying airplanes. He absolutely loved it. I got him his instrument rating, trained him for that. And I'll never forget, we took off one day from Santa Monica on a IFR cross-country flight to San Francisco. And I put him under the hood, and when we got at about 200 or 300 feet, put him under the hood. He flew it all the way to San Francisco, and then had him take off the hood when we got down to about the decision height of 200 feet at San Francisco. And he absolutely went crazy. He couldn't believe it. He said, I took off from Santa Monica, and I couldn't see a thing. And here it is. He couldn't believe that the runway laid out before him without him ever seeing it. He said it was so aesthetic. He said it was one of the most incredible experiences of his life. He really appreciated what the airplane did and the experiences that it got for him. He used the airplane rather well. He had a Comanche at the time. And at that time, there was a Soviet trawler reported off the coast of California, about 20 or 30 miles offshore. And while other reporters were content to report that that trawler was there, they'd been told about it, Hal was the kind of guy who had to go out and see it for himself. And he took a cameraman with him. They flew out in the Comanche and took pictures of the trawler. And they buzzed it. Hopefully they were concerned about getting shot down. They weren't. And he was dedicated to getting the news and proving that the news really was happening. He didn't take anybody's word for it. He was a great reporter, a great newscaster. I should add that, and maybe this is something that would be worthwhile to somebody, Hal absolutely refused to have a colonoscopy. He just wouldn't do it. He never told us why he wouldn't go. Perhaps I can imagine why, but he would not have a colonoscopy under any circumstances, and he paid the price for that. He wound up getting colon cancer and dying out of it an age that was much younger than was necessary.
Hi, Barry. My name's Jack Brush, and I congratulate you on taking the 1,000-kilometer away from the Russian. But are you aware who holds the record now?
I think it was broken originally. Our record was broken by a Polanka Skyrocket, which was a hot rod, a single engine airplane.
That's correct.
I'm not sure who holds it now.
I do.
You do?
I did 314. So, but mine
In what
was
airplane?
Aerostar. But it was nowhere a standard airplane.
What was it?
Go ahead, Jack, tell him.
It was 300 horsepower, intercooled, and aileron gap seals, seals all over the hinge plates, internal engine modifications that are invisible. And I even took the cover off the temperature probe to get a little extra speed. And I did a 60-degree bank turn, but I was running a GPS so I could get within 100 meters of the turn point. And as you say, there's a trade-off. But it took me 5 efforts to break it because I kept screwing up the turn or dumping all my oil over in Nebraska and various things. But I got it, and I'm looking forward for somebody else to take it away. So I thank you for starting it.
Hey, the pleasure's mine, and congratulations on your record. Like they say, records are made to be broken.
Anybody else?
I guess you've said everything there is to say. I think we're done with the questions.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me to your meeting. I
Oh.
really appreciate it.
Oh,
We'd rather have been there in person.
We really appreciate you coming too. That's just fantastic. Loved hearing all this, and we had so many questions about how the hell you went that fast, you know? If you could elaborate on where that throttle was, that would be helpful.
The throttle was full.
I suspected that. Hey, well, thanks again, Barry. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
That was awesome, Barry. Oh, thank you. I just want to let you know, I do have this stamped, postmarked, and original signatures from all three. Hal and of course Barry. Oops, sorry. Okay. Yeah, anyway, all three. So this will be on the bidding table, I guess, on Wednesday night. So keep this in mind. This is just one of very few that were actually on the aircraft. So just want to share. Looks like our leader is leaving. Bye.